Just I haven't.
Welcome to the Nehemiah Business Lifecycle Podcast. My name is Patrice. Tsague. I'm your host. I'm here today with Carmen. Is it Copu? Did I say it right, Carmen?
You got it right in the first try.
I love it. Carmen is, we're having Carmen here because she's one of the guests this year for our conference on the Nehemiah Business Summit, on the focus on kingdom business and mental health. And Carmen is an expert in that area. Let me tell you a bit about her organization. So she's with Resilient Source. They do training, treatment, and transformation. And what's neat about them, here's how that works. I love this. Well, for them to tell you about Carmen, she was born in the U.S., but grew up in Romania from age 9 to 19, came back to America for school, then promptly moved to Taiwan for several years, worked as an educator and serving in her church. And it was also her dream to study counseling. And then she moved to Atlanta in 2022 to pursue a degree and graduate in 2025. You just graduated.
I did.
Oh,
Yes,
wow. That is awesome. Dream come true, isn't it?
it is.
Uh,
Yeah.
Here's how she works. She says humans are created for relationship, whether to be with others, God, or themselves. She believes most of our wound comes from broken relationships. These wounds from early relationship, create patterns on how we relate to others and ourselves. So healing also needs to happen in a relational setting. Her goal is to help bring healing through the therapy relationship and by coming alongside you as you explore the relationship you have with yourself and all hidden hurt and missing parts. You know what, Carolyn? You don't realize how much I love what you just wrote there. This week we had a staff retreat, and I kind of did a prelude of what I'm going to be sharing during the conference. And one of the things I talked about is how you overcome mental health issue, knowing that some
Mhm.
element of it is clinical, and we're going to talk about that because I want you to break that down for us in terms of what's clinical versus what is not. How do you know the difference? But we talked about following the great commandments to love God, love yourself, and love others as you love yourself. That's essentially what you just said right in that write up, right? To love God, have a relationship with God, have a relationship, a healthy relationship with yourself, self care, and love others as you love yourself. So, Carmen, thank you first of all for agreeing to be one of our panelists this year to bring your
Absolutely.
expertise to our group. Um, it's interesting. You're Christian. You have a history of missions. Uh, Historically, when you think of therapy, counseling, psychology, mental health, it doesn't always have the best relationship with Christianity. But at an early age, you saw the tie. Could you tell us a bit about what was it about that made you want to do this?
Absolutely, Patrice, and I'm so glad to be here. I don't know. I thrive when I'm able to have a platform to be able to inform folks about things that just aren't really known or spoken about, or there may be different stigmas
Mhm.
about certain issues. And I think, in the end, we all have issues, and I want to use the knowledge that I have to connect people in their issues and in their mental health struggles. And I'm so glad you asked that question. I think that's a really good question. What did I see and what kind of drew me? It's a bit of a longer story. Um, so it's interesting because what you said about Christianity and counseling and those two things kind of being conflicting is what pushed me to put off pursuing this for so long.
Oh wow.
Initially, when I was a teenager, I was really drawn to helping people. And I love to listen to people talk. People would tell me things, and I would just be like, I'm 17. I don't know why you're telling me this. But I enjoyed that. But at the time in my mind, I was thinking, you know what? Freud and Jung and these great minds, if you will, who started some of this, the clinical counseling side of things, they're not Christian. And so the conclusions that they come to, how can they be solutions to our problems? You know, if they're started
It's
with the
good.
foundation of hedonism, or not hedonism, but humanism, um, how can they arrive to the idea that we really are in a sinful world, right? They can't arrive at the same solutions because their problems are a little bit misplaced, if that makes sense. Their
Mm,
foundations are misplaced because they're based on a slightly off worldview. So I had these thoughts going through my mind and decided to study communications at that time. Um, and it's really only much later. I'll kind of spare you some of the middle of the story, but I came to what was the catalyst. I was in Taiwan, teaching English over there, serving in a church, and I was working with these college age young people, and finding I I am sitting across from someone, and they are having a panic attack, and
mm,
I can pray for you. I can listen. I can say, I'm, happy to help in those ways. Or there may have been someone who, maybe there was some suicide ideation, and I didn't know what to do with that because I want to keep this person safe. But I
mm,
felt like all I can do, which is a lot, to pray for someone and just listen and be there. But it felt like it wasn't enough, and so I finally decided, I am going to go and study counseling, and I feel immensely privileged to have been able to study at a integrated program. And so
mm,
um, they did we did study clinical counseling, but it was from a faith-based perspective, and that school is based here in Atlanta. It's called Richmond Graduate University. I had an amazing experience there. I would highly recommend to anyone who's looking for that. But I think the conclusion that I came to when it comes to, counseling and Christianity conflicting so much is just with everything. There's always going to be any information that you are consuming. There's always going to be some that might not quite fit in with our worldview, and to use the discernment, right?
it's
That
good.
God has blessed us with. In James, he talks about, if you lack wisdom, ask, and I'll give to you freely. And um, that's something that this program really encouraged us to do, was to discern. And then I also had this thought too. You know what? These people, most of the men, were created in the image of God. Like Freud was created in the image of God. Jung, Adler, all of these people, they're created in God's image, which means there's certain things about them that are true.
It's
I
good.
think that they were able to really stumble on some very, very true things, using their wisdom and the talents and blessings that God ultimately come from God, right? Every good thing comes from God, and I think that they stumbled on some really true things, and that's kind of why I'm in the field now, to try and connect, right, the Christianity, which kind of conflicts, or at least in people's minds can conflict, um, with clinical counseling. But I think clinical counseling has so many important things that it can teach us, and I just really want to bridge those two.
I love it. Bridging Christianity with clinical counseling. I love it. And I'm going to ask you in a few minutes the difference. How do you know when it's clinical versus when it's just pure emotional, and trauma and trauma issues get overcome? I'm
Absolutely.
talking with Carmen. And Carmen is what's the right term for your role, Carmen? Um,
I'm a clinical counselor.
Yeah, she's a clinical counselor, and Carmen is with an organization where this is kind of what they do. They call resilient resources, and I love that name, resilient source. Actually, resilient source. and they do treatment, they do training, do transformational services. And I'm having her here because she will be a speaker at the Nehemiah Summit, as we have this theme on kingdom, business, and mental health. If you're not yet registered, you want to do it right now, go to our website, nehemiaheq.com, go to the events page, register, or go to nehemiah-summit.com and register. So let's talk about that a bit, Carmen. What is the difference between clinical mental health and just basic mental health that we all kind of struggle with at one point or another of our journey?
Yeah, great question. A bit of a tough one. I can see a couple different ways to answer, but I think essentially it's just different names for the same thing. I think
Mm.
those of us who are on that licensure path, so I'll be state licensed, um, like to add on different words that I don't know, give us more. Uh, what's the term? Give us more. My words are escaping me currently.
Credibility.
Credibility.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
That may give us more credibility. So I would just kind of toss it all into the same thing. When we think of clinical, typically that would imply more structured or maybe more researched, evidence-based.
Yeah. So
So if
what about for somebody who, as we, for instance, with this conference, right? I'm a pastor, I'm a coach. How do I know when someone needs more clinical help versus just memorize scripture, just do these techniques, just think positively, right? Just so I guess, or how does someone know when the issue is chronic, where just doing the routine, thinking correctly,
mm,
lifestyle, diet, all that stuff is just not
mhm,
enough, where it might
mhm,
require, in some cases, medical treatment, or in some
mhm,
cases, some hardcore therapy?
mm,
Where's that line drawn
yeah,
between, you talked about between trauma from
mhm,
childhood,
right.
between things that versus stuff that are so has so impacted you that you do need more hardcore assistance from
Right.
a Carmen versus a pastor, Patrice, Tsague, or a coach?
Yeah, it's a great question. That is a really, I don't think there is a hard line.
Oh.
I would say, I mean, there are certain hard lines. For example, if the member of your church is experiencing suicide ideation,
Mhm.
that can be really dangerous. And a lot of times, if you're not trained, we just kind of believe the different things that we think in society. Oh, they're making it up, or oh, they're I don't know, they may have some spiritual issue, and those things are all potentially valid. But it is really helpful to be able to have that specific training that I have, and that folks in, I guess, the more clinical side would have, to know how to diagnose and assess in a situation like that when it comes to someone being in danger,
Mhm.
um, in that situation. So that's a hard line in my opinion. If there's eating disorders as well, because that's also a life or death thing, they do need medical
Mhm.
treatment and mental health services. Um,
What about things like they're cutting themselves, as some kids do
hmm,
today,
yeah, something like
doing
that. I think,
self harm?
yeah, self-harm for sure. And then honestly, what it comes down to, and this is the part that's maybe not so hard line, is what do you feel like you're equipped to deal with well, and
Mhm.
what feels a little bit uncomfortable or maybe a little out of your
Mhm.
training. What's working
Mhm.
and what's not. Um, if you're, because there may be someone who has a bigger issue, let's say, and they're responding super well to some of the more like biblical counseling uh, side of things, or getting more of the spiritual disciplines, and they're responding really well to community and being surrounded in the church. Um, if there's someone who's not, and there's nothing that seems to be working, if there are people who are feeling out of their depth, I would say that's a situation.
That's
Um,
good.
Also, another thought that comes to mind, if you're dealing with any kind of psychosis, or if
Mm.
you're dealing with just
For
more
my community,
severe.
could you define what psychosis means so that
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
layperson?
absolutely.
It's one of those
Yeah,
big words again that you use that's clinical.
yeah, yes. Right. Yeah, there's a difference. Psychosis would just be like a simplified definition would be not in touch with reality.
Got it.
So if they're seeing things that aren't there, or if they're hearing things that aren't there, any kind of hallucinations. Um,
Well, what if it's the Holy Ghost?
right. So then we have to consider their cult, like, is it causing them distress?
Mm-hmm. That's
Um,
good.
and the Holy Spirit, the fruit of the Holy Spirit does not bring distress with him.
That's good. That's
Um,
good.
there's peace, joy,
That's good.
obviously
That's good.
addiction and things like that,
Yeah.
but it's not going to have someone be completely disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
So I would
When
say
you
that's
were
the
kind
difference.
of talking about the what a coach or even a pastor or a spiritual trained counselor would use to determine things are out of your depth. So I was just also, is it working? I like how you simplified it, really, particularly being licensed trained, because sometimes the more trained licensed we are, the more we put us in the straitjacket where
Hmm.
we almost are not pragmatic or practical. So I like that about you. What I thought about also is for individuals. That's also one for to know if it's not working, if they're not getting better, if they're getting worse, then that may be where they say, you know what, Bible study alone, church community alone, my pastor alone, my coach alone, I need to get more help. So I
Right.
think that's
Yeah.
so that could also be. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where I started.
Yeah.
I was serving in the leadership team of my church, and I was leading a Bible study, and um there was someone I told, hey, I think you need more help than I can offer. I was seeing some symptoms of depression, and even thoughts of just not being wanting to be alive anymore, and I just felt like this is out of my scope, I'm out of my depths. And I'm not that I want to add an addendum to that in a second, but that's where I started. I just realized I don't know who to send you to, because for one, in Taiwan, the mental health resources are just so few, that I decided I'm going to go get trained and be
Wow,
able to step
that's so
into that
good.
gap. But that's one thing I want to mention too about mental health, is that when we do come across someone who we feel like we're out of our depth, or we're not able to help them in the way that we wish we could, that person needs to be offered other resources of maybe people who are more trained, but they also need to be really embraced even more by the community. Um, I sometimes think to myself, if someone could choose between mental health resources, depending on their situation, if they're in danger, they need mental health resources. But if, let's say, they're generally depressed or anxious, or maybe have some PTSD, and if they could choose between, like, community or mental health, like clinical therapy, they should go with community. And
Mm.
I think God created us for relationships. He created us to be with one another. He created us to be with himself. And if we're isolated, um, there's like every issue you have is going to get 10 times worse. And
Wow.
10 times is just a random number I came up with. But it, isolation is, I mean, it's used in psychological torture for a reason. It is, and I think that's what we're finding more and more today after COVID.
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to say, is that why COVID was such a emphasis for increased mental health issues?
I think that's one of the main reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the being online constantly and being more and more isolated from one another and from our communities has definitely led to, or is in a major part led to a lot of the issues that we're seeing today.
Wow. I'm talking with Carmen. She's a licensed counselor, licensed therapist in mental health. She's with a great organization uh, called Resilience Source. They do training, they do treatment, and they do transformational services. She will be our speaker during the Nehemiah Business Summit on mental health and kingdom business. If you've not yet registered, again, I want to encourage you, go to the website, nehemiahecommunity.com, and go to the events page and sign up and join us. We'll be addressing several topics, but more importantly, we're going to be addressing how do you, as an entrepreneur, navigate mental health as you deal with the trials and tests of business and as you deal with creating a healthy organizational culture to ensure the well-being of your employees. You had this thing of being an entrepreneur yourself. Studies
Yes.
show that not only has mental health increased post-COVID, but also among entrepreneurs, they're the one group against the general population that are more prone to mental health issues. And so my question to you is, what do you say about that? Or can you see that in terms of the entrepreneurship journey being one that could be lonely, being one that could have a lot of risk involved that can lead to trauma, all the dynamics of business. Any thoughts there, Carmen?
Yeah, great question. I think it's really interesting. In thinking about this issue too, because I was contemplating, okay, how do we combine like mental health with entrepreneurship? And um, I was thinking, first of all, what comes first? Is it that pursuing entrepreneurship causes
Mm,
these things, or is it folks that have ADHD or some of these other
that's
mental
right.
health challenges are attracted to entrepreneurship?
Good point.
And
Good insight.
I think there is a little bit of both, but I would say if it's a chicken or the egg, I would say I think it's people with, let's just talk about ADHD, for example,
Hmm.
are attracted to doing things like entrepreneurship because of the high risk, because of
Mm,
the challenge, because of the high mental stimulation that it involves. Um, and so that I think that's why you would see higher rates of um, folks with ADHD um, being in entrepreneurs, being entrepreneurs. And of course, that comes along with there's a lot of really interesting statistics with ADHD. Um, People with ADHD tend to be 2 to 3 times more likely to have an addiction. Um, Fascinating. There's a ton of interesting research on that, and if you just do a basic Google search, you can find quite a bit of information on that. They're also a lot of times tend to be more likely to have another issue that they may have, including anxiety, depression, PTSD. And so that is really interesting how y'all work with entrepreneurs, and no wonder you're finding, oh, this is also something. This is a factor. You're a coaching company, and you cannot coach people well without kind of looking at this too. And so I love that you're doing this kind of mental health aspect of your conference. I think that's really cool.
yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Well, you are going to be such a delight. We so look forward to having you at the conference, and there's going to be a lot more because we're going to really deal with this topic. Before we land the plane, however, let me ask you one more question, and I'm going to ask you some advice to our members. In your own journey, um, have you yourself had signs of mental health issues that you can recall, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, great question. I have, absolutely, yes. Um, I don't know where to start. They say that people who do go into counseling or therapy, they're there for a reason. And I am the same as everybody else. So I have my own experiences with that. I would say the one that I guess will go ahead and share is that I very recently also discovered that I may have ADHD myself. Um, and so one thing I want to explain with that, and I think this is maybe not as commonly understood, is that there's two types of ADHD. There's the hyperactive part, which basically means that your mind is running, running, running. It's going, going, going. That may be trouble paying attention. That may be switching focus constantly to different things, needing a lot of mental stimulation, just kind of thriving in more of the chaos, being unable to sit still. And I think the hyperactive side is a bit more of what we think of when we consider ADHD. But there's the other type of ADHD called inattentive ADHD. And that's kind of the opposite of the mind running. It's where your mind has trouble staying awake, um, and it almost goes to sleep, if that's a helpful way to think about it. And this type is quite a bit more uh, women tend to have this type more, but it's also very, very underdiagnosed. So there are many women who kind of learn to mask over the years, and then in later life, in 20s, 30s, 40s, may be diagnosed with inattentive ADHD. And I wasn't diagnosed with that, but that's I I kind of more recently came about that I might have that. I haven't been officially diagnosed with it. Um, that is an interesting challenge it comes with. I do notice that along with that, kind of with ADHD, you're more prone sometimes to anxiety or to depression. So with that, I've kind of noticed, okay, if I am not really taking care of myself well, I do tend toward isolation. I do tend more towards depression, and I can see that in myself.
And is that a
Um,
plus when you're able to recognize within yourself as well as you serve your own clients? Does that the Bible said that Jesus was touched with the feelings of our infirmities?
mhm,
Does that kind of lend to a certain empathy or certain compassion, certain relatability, or does it
mhm.
matter?
No, absolutely. Um, in order to help other people, and I think this applies to my field as well as to what y'all are doing to pastors and to entrepreneurs as well. If you are not aware of what's in your own house, you don't know what you're dealing with, those things are going to come out in different ways, and in your relationships. So I think um, having the knowledge that, oh, I have a propensity to isolate. I sometimes have thoughts of worthlessness or imposter syndrome or whatever it may be. In order to connect with people well as a therapist and as their therapist, to know we're just two humans trying to navigate this road. Like, I am broken just as you are. And first, I think that keeps me humble in a lot of ways too, because I'm just thinking I could come in with this idea that I'm the expert, but knowing in so many ways, like, oh, I I have this issue too, or I have that issue, can be really helpful, even if I'm not actively telling my clients those things, but can just be really helpful to know in the back of my mind, like, oh, I know, I get it. And so
Oh,
even I would just say to really anyone listening, knowing your own stuff can be extremely helpful in any kind of work you do, because we're all working with humans. And I find that the when it talking from like the relationship perspective that you introduced me with, when we're working with different people, we're in many ways reenacting relationships over and over again. And typically, those relationships are ones that we had when we were children. And so, if we had a lot of dysfunctional relationships when we were children, we're going to see the same just kind of dysfunctions replaying themselves over and over again. And so, it's absolutely important for every person to know what are the ways that I'm really sensitive in. or what is my core wound? Am I very sensitive to um, abandonment, or if someone
Mhm.
questions my worth? You have to know that we have to be grounded in the Lord. Um, and I think therapy in many ways can help us kind of identify those things. And also, of course, the Holy Spirit um, can help us to identify those things, to be able to be more aware, and then to work towards healing, and then seeing how me transforming can um, kind of transform the relationships that I have even today.
That is so good. Listen, we talking to Carmen. She will be our speaker at the uh, Nehemiah Business Summit. You can see why we had her. And if you've not yet registered for the summit, go to nehemiaheq.com or Nehemiah summit.com, and you can go to the event page and just you can sign up. Carmen, if they want to get in touch with you and they say, wow, I've not heard a therapist that is just so good, and you are good, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have email sign up link
Okay.
that they can access, and I send out a weekly email just on different mental health topics. I'm doing one on social media addiction and doom scrolling, um, and that'll be coming out soon. But yeah, if you sign up for that, I'm able to kind of keep in touch in that way. If they have other questions or just want to have a conversation, I'm happy to also set that up.
Awesome. Go sign up and get in touch. Carmen, would you create, it'd be good if you can do and take one of your write-ups and do an entrepreneur related um, talk piece for our blog.
Absolutely.
Can you do that for
I would
us?
love to. Absolutely.
Let's do it. Carmen, do not leave yet, because before I let you go, I want you to give one other word of advice to our listeners. Is that okay with you and our
Of
viewers?
course. Yeah.
Listen, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to know more about Carmen, there's her email list is right there on the screen or on the chat. Just go there, connect with her, sign up, and take advantage of it. If you want to know more about Nehemiah, how to join us at the summit, go to Nehemiah business dash Nehemiah business dash summit, where you can take advantage of being registering for this summit and being a part. Nehemiah um, business dash summit.com, where you can take advantage of this summit. If you want to get involved with Nehemiah, with your business, for us to help you in to move from one stage to another, whether you are at discovery, whether you are a startup, whether you are at break even, whether you are profitability, sustainability, scalability, or succession, wherever you're in the business stage, you need help in our training and coaching program, go to nehemiaheq.com, where you can learn about our membership program. Membership does have its privileges. You can become a member, silver, gold, diamond, or bronze, and begin your journey with us. You can learn about our training program, whether it's biblical entrepreneurship, identity, and destiny, which is a critical course for what we're talking about. Serve with love. You can just connect there and take advantage of those courses so we can start that journey with us today. If you want to know about our coaching program, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching, you can right there on our website, get started, sign up for a free coaching session, and begin your journey. You want to know about our access to capital, how we can come alongside you, help you raise capital to grow your business. You can learn about that as well there. You will learn about any of our events. There's an events page. We can learn about the summit, our monthly free seminars, our connect meetings, our global forums. You can take advantage of it there. If you enjoy this podcast, I want you to share it. Share with your friends, share with your coworkers, your associate. You know somebody who is dealing with some kind of mental health issues. They may not even be an entrepreneur. Share this podcast with them so they can get to know Carmen, her organizations, and get to know this resource that we share with you today. With that, Carmen, I know there's somebody watching and listening, and they're saying, Carmen, giving the the wars happening in the Middle East,
Mm.
giving the current economic situation, giving even for some people the political state of the country based on what side you're on, right? Even that has brought a lot of trauma, and so, or somebody in the country where they have a dictatorship, or they're facing persecution as a Christian. What advice would you give them? What, as a clinical therapist, what advice you give them to help, to just give them help navigate their current stage without falling apart in their mental health?
Wow. Um, I am going to attempt to answer that. But when it comes to all the different issues that people have in different parts of the world, right? Some issues are not equal to others.
Mm,
So for example, if you're living in a first world country, your issues are not going to be quite the same as maybe if you're living in a war-torn country. Um, I would say find out what it is that you're living for. I think if our life is based on something, if my life is based on something, then I can overcome many, many things.
mm,
And so find out what that thing is and get closer to it. Um, so that's just finding your why, right? Um, your reason for existence. If that means being a Christian, right? Drawing closer to the Lord, really leaning into that relationship, into the source of hope that He is. Um, and then, and even more than that, as a Christian, what is it specifically that God is calling you to do? How is He calling you to be? And then just find your groundedness in that. Um, so that's kind of the high level, sort of, I don't know, more philosophical answer. And then the more practical answer is no matter where you live and where you're from, I think this could apply to you, is we all need to be in community. We are made to be in community. And when we're not, we're more susceptible to many different mental health issues. We're more susceptible to physical issues, emotional, spiritual, um, all the realm of problems that you could think of are we're just more vulnerable when we're alone and when we're isolated. And I know it can be really uncomfortable, especially for maybe people who don't feel as connected, to maybe take some of those steps of connection. Um, but but find a church, find a book club, find a group of people that you can feel safe with, and just get to know them, go deeper. That I think can apply to any situation across the world. Um,
uh,
there's a lot more I could say on that, but when answering a question like that, it's definitely harder to give. Like the answer that I would give to folks in a war-torn country are very different than I would give to,
yeah.
people having issues in a country where maybe your biggest issue is credit card debt or something like that. So,
Oh, I
but
love
thanks
it.
for that.
Find your why and get in community. That is just so good. Carmen, speak to entrepreneurs. Why should they attend this conference?
That's a great question. I mean, as we touched on just a few minutes ago, we talked about how there are the people who have certain issues like ADHD or maybe depression, anxiety, PTSD, specifically around ADHD, though, who are more prone to or more drawn to doing entrepreneurial work and exceed in that, and it can excel in that based on their gifts as someone with ADHD. But then there's also certain things that come along with having ADHD, for example, that can be challenging. And I think this conference, pairing that mental health with entrepreneurship, is very powerful. But even if you don't have ADHD or don't relate to that at all, we just need to know how to be with ourselves and to be with others well. And every entrepreneur, hopefully, is wanting to. You might start on your own, but you want to grow. You want to have people around you who are building this thing together. And um, no matter what. that's always going to be hard, right? When it comes to people, there's going to be conflict and different things. And I think learning to do that well, learning to take care of your own mental health, and learning different strategies to work with other people under you, or that you're working with, is absolutely important.
Oh, I love it. Carmen, thank you so much for being here with us. Looking forward to seeing you at the conference. With that, let me pray for you guys who are watching and listening. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord enable you to steward those talents that are under your care, whether you're a 1 talent gal, 2 talent, or 5 talent. May you steward them in such a way that one day you can hear those wonderful words, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Guess what? He'll not make you rule over many things. God bless you. Thanks for watching and listening. See you at the conference.
Peace.
All right. Bye-bye.